Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos, Nigeria. A reminder of our top stories. Governor Mozo Aliyu promises full participation of the North in the proposed national conference. Delta Central senatorial by-election holds amid complaints of irregularities by voters. Today on our Independence Special Report series, we shift attention to the education sector. An African Union condemns the International Criminal Court for ignoring its request to defer some cases involving African leaders. All our top stories and other programs can be found on our website, channelstv.com, and on youtube.com/channelsweb. To get us on the move, log on to m.channelstv.com to view us live on an iPad, iPhone or BlackBerry. You can also download the Channels TV app for Android and Nokia 920 devices from their respective stores. You can now interact with Channels Eyewitness feature on our Android and Windows 8 platforms. If you have a picture or video to share with us, all you need to do is download the Channels TV Android application on your device, swipe to reveal the Eyewitness menu, and follow the instructions to share your report, pictures, and videos. The Bauchi state government has concluded arrangements with a Chinese firm to construct a 140 megawatts independent power plant. The state governor, Issa Yuguda, who made this known in Abuja, explained that the funds for the project will be provided by the Chinese Exim Bank and will be paid back over a period of 25 years. He noted that 60% of the power generated from the plant will be delivered to the national grid.
The project is about $201 million. And we are very positive that with the power generation that it will generate, is a very important project, not only for Bauchi State, but for the nation at large. Given the power demand as it is today in Bauchi, we have the capacity to consume about 40%, and the 60% would sell to the national grid for the time being. But as demand increases, we may have to reduce the bit that we may sell to the national grid. The good news is that he has received the blessing of the federal government of Nigeria and the National Assembly in form of giving a sovereign guarantee. And of course, the China Exim Bank had gladly accepted the project, and they have been reviewing the project with a view to granting a facility to part finance the construction and delivery of the project.
The Bauchi State Governor Issa Yuguda. Nigerians have continued to describe the portrait of the country's education sector 53 years after its independence as disturbing. As the sector grapples with the ambitious task of education for all by 2015, a budget that lags far behind UNESCO's requirement, as well as a series of industrial actions over the years, it seems the crisis in the sector is unending. Our education correspondent, Gloria Umezuke, examines the issues in this critical sector.
From 1960, when Nigeria celebrated her 53rd independence anniversary, till 2013, it appears so much has changed to define the concept of the Independence Day celebration. For one, the education sector in Nigeria has seen several attacks. Its first in 1978, when the then Obasanjo military regime increased tuition and feeding fees in universities as part of an economic austerity measure. Since the inception of the present civilian administration 14 years ago, budgeting allocation to education has been relentlessly on the decline.
If you look at the budget of 2010, the budget of 2011, and the budget of 2012-13, you find out that education has always been having the highest. So if you put this together, you would not say that education is not being funded. But that also does not mean that we will say that that funding is enough.
The past years have also witnessed monumental scales of failure in the WAEC, NECO and UTME exams, with the immediate future appearing not too promising.
The admission system in Nigeria is flawed. In Britain, for instance, you can't even look for admission until you have finished your A-level. It is clear. You can't apply unless you have your A-level result with you. In Nigeria, even the kid that is in SS3, that does not even know what kind of result is going to bring out, everybody is poured into the application system. Very rarely in Nigeria's history has insecurity brought the education sector to a halt, like in the recent times.
Democracy, civil rule, has crashed education and has brought up more politics, more showmanship. You keep saying the future of any country is dependent on education, and then you are not doing much to improve quality. You are not doing much to improve infrastructure. You are not doing much to ensure that the conditions within learning environments are such that can compete with any around the world. According to statistics of UNESCO, there are about 10.5 million out-of-school children in Nigeria, and a major percentage of these children are Almajiris from the north. Despite these flaws, those in the corridors of power argue that there has been a good measure of success in the sector, even though many children continue to hawk and roam the streets. The Minister of Education says primary school enrollment, which stood at about 3 million in the 60s, has increased significantly, especially with the upgrading of the Almajiri schools by the Jonathan administration.
That's on the right track. We said at least by 2015, we should have gotten not less than 300 of the schools. But as we speak presently, we have gotten not less than 120 some of the schools, and 84 have been completed. With a handful of students in the 60s, today we have over 1 million students. We are not as bad as we think we are.
What is worse is a series of strike actions by the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, in recent years, allowing further setbacks in the sector.
People should face the reality on ground. Yes, one thing that it is necessary that man must make demands, but in each demand you are making, you must situate it as the existing circumstance. Is it practicable? And so there's no need of you saying government should make commitments that will be difficult for them to fulfill tomorrow.
Conclusively, many agree that sustainable growth and development in the sector is hinged on the right investment across board, which would accelerate sufficient transformation in the country in the years to come. Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Well, joining me now from our Abuja studio to discuss the issues in the education sector is an education consultant, Mrs. Choma Osuje. Thank you so much, Choma, for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Now, looking back, do you think there's been any improvement in the sector compared to where we're coming from?
Well, so far, I don't think there has been an improvement in the sector, because looking at the statistics we have, even the out-of-school children, according to UNESCO, we have 10.5 children that are out of school, while in 1999 it was 7.4 children that are out of school, and now there's an increase. And that's also, if you look at the in terms of infrastructure, the same thing. So the issue there is there has not been an improvement in the education sector. Things tend to be in a deplorable state over the years, and this will tend to a lack of transparency in the sector, because those that have, you know, the people that have been in the society, maybe in the 60s and 70s, they always tell us that education then was very good in the situation whereby they're in the school, all the infrastructures are being provided for them, and immediately they finish school, you have your job and all that. But now this is not what we are saying. So looking at what we have so far, I think there's little improvement on none at all.
So would you say it has to do with the policies? You know, if the policies that we have right now for the sector, if they've made any change, has it been able to encourage any development in any form?
Yeah, there is no problem with the policies, because if you look at the national policy on education, the philosophy of it is based on building an individual that is a sound and effective citizen. And in the sections and also the subsections, everything that will help or enable us to have a sound education is being embedded in that national policy on education. So, but the problem we have is the issue of implementation. Already or so far we have good policies that have been developed so far, but the problem we have had over time is the problem of implementation of those policies. Because most times an administration will just come in, even though the other policies we have are okay, they will just tend to, you know, have their own policy and all that. So I don't think that the problem we have so far is the issue of policy, but the problem we have is the issue of implementing the policies we have on ground. Because the policies we have so far on ground are good policies that, if well implemented, we will tend to achieve our goal. So, but like I said, the issue we have is that issue of implementation of those policies.
Now, if this policy is meant to achieve the goals of improving how the children actually fare at school, what's your take on the ongoing industrial action embarked on by the Academic Staff Union of Universities, bearing in mind what this national policy on education is supposed to fulfill, among other things, broaden the minds of the children?
Yeah, on the industrial strike action that we are experiencing now, and like I said, the policy tends to look at those issues, because if you look at the national policy on education, there's a section there that looks at the recommended greater funding for education. Now, on the ASU issue, the problem we have is, I think the government, they need to, before agreeing to an MOU with the ASU, they have to look at the modalities of achieving those agreements or the demands. It's not an issue of coming to say, okay, this is what they demand, and you just agree to them immediately. But you look at it, okay, if they are demanding for this, how do we help, how do we sustain it over years? Looking at the demands they have made, how do we meet up those demands? It's not just agreeing to the demands. At the end of the day, you just stop, and after how many years they will not come back again to, you know, agitate on the non-implementation of those demands. Because already the ASU and the federal government, they signed an MOU, that is 2009, and they have different, you know, they have their demands, which the federal government have to meet up, and which the federal government is not meeting up. And this is not even helping the students, because education is a human right. Every citizen of this country have the right to have quality education. And with what is going on currently in the country now, I don't think at the end of the day that quality education is being given to the students, because at the end of the day now they have stayed in the house for more than 3 months, getting to 4 or 5 months, and before you know it now, after the strike is over, they have a crash program, and with this crash program, what they intend to learn within those specified period is not given to them, thereby both the government or the ASU is subchanging the students. What they need to learn within those specified periods, they don't get it. And that's why we continue to have the issue whereby people now say that our graduates are half-baked. You see a graduate that is okay, the graduate cannot speak well or write well. These are just the issue. Because with what we are having on ground now, even take for instance, maybe it does in the College of Education. By the time they are through now, maybe they have the crash program and they say they have graduated. Already what they're supposed to learn within that specified period, they didn't get it. And they just come out from school. What do you want them to impart to the children? It's still what they think they have.
Well, thank you so much, Choma. We can go on
what
and on about this issue, but I'm afraid we are really out of time. But thank you so much for joining us on the News at 10. Well, I've been speaking with an education consultant, Choma Osuji, and we've been discussing the issues in the education sector. We're still ahead on the News at 10. Our focus on health tonight looks at the hazards of using skin lightening or bleaching creams. Please join us again.